Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to trace the absolutely incredible journey of honesty. And I mean, starting from just a tiny whisper within ourselves and watching it ripple all the way out to global justice. You know, this isn't just about following the rules, it's really about the human spirit. Today, we're taking a deeply emotional, motivational look at a concept that literally forms the bedrock of our entire society. So let's dive right in. We have to begin at the very foundation of personal growth. There's a great saying, once you come face to face with who you are, you have a starting point. And it's so true, right? Because without that brutal self-honesty, we're basically just building a house on a false reality. Think about it. If you lie to yourself about your capabilities, or your courage, or even your flaws, you're continuously pushing your own starting line backwards. Living a truly authentic life requires you to look right in the mirror and accept exactly where you are today. That raw truth, that is where all real progress begins.
But here's a really interesting question. What happens when we take that internal truth and apply it outward to the rest of the world? I mean, what does honesty actually look like when we share it with our neighbors, our colleagues, or even our governments? If honesty is the starting point for us personally, how does it scale up to shape our communities and our societies? Well, let's explore that in Section 1, Simple Tales of Mutual Trust. Let's look at this first level of societal impact and see exactly how honesty builds mutual trust and respect in our everyday, interpersonal lives. You might have heard the classic parable of the farmer and the baker. It brilliantly highlights a simple law of life. If you cheat others, you're really just cheating yourself, because you always get what you give. In this story, there's an enraged baker who actually takes a poor farmer to court. His claim? The farmer has been selling him short-weighted butter, but then the farmer drops a stunning truth bomb on the judge. He admits he doesn't actually own any exact weights. Instead, he balances his scale using the 1-pound loaf of bread he buys from that very same baker every single day. So the baker's own deceit was literally being weighed against him. We see this exact same theme echoed beautifully in the legendary story of Shankar the water carrier. It proves that while envy and deceit might build these temporary traps, sincerity and a pure heart will always, ultimately lead to justice. See, Shankar was this humble, super cheerful guy whose honesty totally won over the king, but a jealous minister decided to plot against him. He tricked Shankar into wearing a mask, telling him the king absolutely hated his breath. Then, this minister turned around and told the king that Shankar was wearing the mask because he found the king's breath offensive. Well, the furious king ordered the execution of the man who left the palace carrying a bouquet of roses, a lethal trap meant specifically for Shankar. But Shankar, completely pure-hearted and totally unaware of this whole plot, kindly handed those roses over to the greedy minister, who claimed he actually deserved the reward. So the minister confidently marched out and walked directly into his own trap. The takeaway here is pretty universal. A simple act of truth builds unshakable respect. And it doesn't matter if it's an adult facing a powerful king, or just a young boy named Leo bravely admitting to his teacher that he broke a classroom toy. In Leo's case, instead of hiding the broken pieces, he took a deep breath, walked right up to his teacher, and totally owned his mistake. And guess what? His friends didn't judge him. They actually admired his courage, and they all pitched in to fix it together. Just owning our actions creates this incredible, positive ripple effect of teamwork and mutual trust. Now, moving on to Section 2, the courage to blow whistles. Here, we're scaling things up from the classroom and the village square all the way to the intense, super high-stakes world of massive organizations and systemic corruption. What happens when a public servant's moral compass, their genuine altruistic alignment to the people, suddenly overrides their obedience to an employer's rules? Well, they take on the monumental burden of whistleblowing. This is defined as revealing information about activity within an organization that is deemed wrongful, illegal, or unethical. Now, we have to be clear here. This isn't just tattling. It is a deeply moral, incredibly difficult choice to expose wrongdoing, and it acts as an absolutely vital check in any democratic society. And we see this profound courage clearly in the harrowing real-world timeline of Catherine Bolkovac. She literally sacrificed her entire career to expose a horrifying sex trafficking ring, one that was facilitated by the very people who were meant to keep the peace. Working as a UN peacekeeper in post-war Bosnia back in 1999, she uncovered the unthinkable. International personnel were deeply involved in human trafficking. Despite facing immense danger, closed doors, and a massive wall of institutional silence, she kept gathering the evidence. When she finally sent a mass email detailing these atrocities, she was fired in direct retaliation. But Catherine absolutely refused to be silenced.
ultimately taking her deeply emotional and urgent story straight to BBC News.
But we have to recognize that this kind of courage comes at a really steep, often devastating cost. Just look at the numbers. A staggering 38% of whistleblowers experience severe professional retaliation. We're talking wrongful termination, mobbing, the whole nine yards. Speaking truth to power can mean sacrificing your livelihood, facing industry blacklists, and enduring massive psychological stress. It's a grueling uphill fight against institutional silence, carried entirely on the shoulders of individuals who simply refuse to look the other way.
Which brings us to Section 3, Restoring Justice and Healing Harm. Because after the truth is finally exposed and a corrupt system is shattered by these brave voices, how do we actually go about picking up the pieces and healing the harm? This requires a total paradigm shift in how society handles wrongdoing. Think about traditional retributive justice. It basically just asks what laws were broken, who did it, and what punishment did they deserve. But Howard Zehr's restorative justice model completely flips the script. It asks deeply human questions instead. Who has been hurt? What do they need to heal? And whose obligations are these? It's a really powerful shift away from just inflicting punishment, towards genuinely addressing the real needs of the victims.
For this to work, the restorative process demands voluntary, completely honest dialogue. It happens in specific steps. First, identifying the causes of the harm, then involving all stakeholders in that honest conversation, actively addressing the victim's needs, and finally, putting things right through real accountability. You know, when an offender actually has to sit across from a victim and truly understand the real-world pain they've caused, it becomes nearly impossible for them to justify their behavior. So this isn't about shaming someone. It's about genuine human redemption.
Honest dialogue isn't just about finding facts. It's the absolute prerequisite for societal healing. As the criminologist John Braithwaite so perfectly put it, with crime, restorative justice is about the idea that because crime hurts, justice should heal. And you simply cannot have true healing without first having the truth. Finally, let's head into Section 4, Documenting Truth to Inspire Change. How do we actually capture these raw, emotional journeys and share these incredible ripples of truth with the rest of the world? One major way is through film. Documentaries have this amazing ability to turn deeply personal narratives into universal lessons about resilience and the boundless potential of the human spirit. Take a film like Stories We Tell. It dives deep into the elusive nature of our own memories and universal family truths. Or look at Man on Wire, which beautifully showcases the sheer audacity and courage required to achieve the impossible. And then you have dramatic films like The Whistleblower, which captures the visceral, grueling reality of Catherine Bolkovac's fight for systemic justice against corruption. It's just like motivational speaker Shiv Kira notes, documentaries offer authentic narratives that can inspire, educate, and provoke thought. By immersing ourselves in these real-life stories, we literally change our own beliefs about what is possible. These cinematic experiences open up windows into totally different lives, sparking profound reflection and reminding every single one of us that a single voice armed with nothing but the truth absolutely has the power to shift culture. We've seen today how the truth builds character, fixes communities, and heals broken societies. But remember, the starting point of that ripple effect is always you. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question. When faced with a difficult choice today, will you choose the comfort of a false reality, or will you have the courage to champion the truth?